Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. With me in this episode, I have a keynote speaker, consultant, and author of 4 books, including The Story Factor, listed in the 100 best business books of all time. Her new book is Drinking from a Different Well, How Women's Stories Change What Power Means in Action. Annette Simmons, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Glad to see you here. How's things going over in the US for you?
Oh dear, where do I start? Basically, frankly, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book is I'm disturbed by the competitive narratives and how they split people into opposites that are really on the same, or the paradox. They're on safety versus freedom. It's not like there's one or the other.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I wrote the book. So thanks for asking.
Excellent. Well, let's dive in then. Before we talk about your book, I noticed that you dedicated this book to Greta Thunberg. So
that's right.
Could you tell me why that was?
Well, I admire her. I think that climate change is the big global problem that is missing female narratives. Male narratives, the whole idea, compete and win or lose without any sort of reset button like normal sports. You just have fewer and fewer winners and more losers. There's a term that's been coined about the useless class. We're creating such a large number of people who aren't on the scoreboard when you look at competitive narratives. And if you look at collaborative narratives, everybody matters. And so we have to recruit a different narrative to think about business and government in order to shift the direction that we're going in.
Right. I see. Okay. So in terms of the narrative, you're talking about male-female narrative, or?
Well, I'm really... I believe that evolution, like other species, uses sexual dimorphism, which is non-genital related gender differences. And so if people talk about whether it's nature or nurture, what's better or what's worse, the way I look at it is male and female narratives were designed to work in tandem.
Right.
And so we need to develop this perceptual agility. Competitive narratives just want the answer. It's a 0 or it's a 1. And that's been embedded in all our algorithms. And so they can't handle paradox. And paradox is handling paradox. The old stories that come from our ancestors were largely about not a hero winning, but it was about negotiating, the path between whether we take care of ourselves or whether we take care of others. And so for me, the definition of moral is from that old ancient, so storytelling definition, which is, what does this story teach me? And the old stories really don't teach us how to win and crush the others. The old stories teach us how to balance, like Aesop's fables and that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. Well, let's dive into the book now. At the beginning of the book, you share your own Me Too, #MeToo story from the 1980s. So share your story about that. And do you really think these things still happen?
Well, I know they still happen because I've been interviewing women. They don't happen as overtly. In my case, and it's a good example of a competitive narrative. So I thought we were all on the Ford business. I was working for J. Walter Thompson, and we were all trying to sell more cars.
Yeah.
But internally, the guy who had the TV budget, which at the time was like $36 million, I started to do some experiments with database marketing, and the dealers love it, the company loves it, but all he sees is that I'm going to take from his budget. And so I had to make a presentation, and he was withholding the sales figures from me. I thought he just didn't know where they were, which is how he presented it. He sent me on a wild goose chase until finally it was Friday afternoon. He was on his way to go have drinks with his entourage, his bro buddies. And I turn the corner and I say, "Hey, Ian, I'm so glad I caught you." I'm still clueless at this point. "I'm so glad I caught you. I need to get those sales statistics because I have to make this presentation Monday morning." And he looks at me and he pulls his keychain flashlight out of his pocket and he starts to shine it on my breasts, left and right. And I can't explain the level of humiliation that I felt at that point. But sexual harassment is not about sex, it's about power.
Right.
And what happens is I shut down. I didn't get my brain back until like 3 a.m. And I'm not a bit of fluff. There's all these guys say, you should have just told him what for and everything like that. I was frozen. And that's what the game is to freeze up a woman so that she can no longer, trust herself. And so one of the things that I found in the research is that there's some specific things that competitive narratives devalue so that women don't trust their own judgment. And one of them is harm avoidance. We make a difference between risk avoidance and harm avoidance. And yet in competitive systems, we get called weak when we avoid harm. Well, it's time to avoid harm. We've created too much harm. And so that's an example of how women's narratives tend to undermine what men's individual goals may be. And so we get branded as the enemy and treated, all's fair in love and war in a competitive narrative. And whatever you can do to shut down a woman who's asking you to, show self-restraint or who's expecting empathy instead of, well, they'll just have to deal with it. These things are used to cause women to doubt themselves and to clear the decks for those who want to win at all cost.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's go a bit more into the narrative and a bit more into the book then. Tell us a story that illustrates the theme of drinking from a well.
Pardon.
All right.
So the best story. So I gathered stories. I asked women to tell me stories on a scale of 1 to 10. How powerful are you? And they would say, "I don't know. What do you mean by power?" And I'd be, "I don't know. What do you mean by power?" And so this is one of the stories that illustrates how female narratives would define a problem differently. Robin, somebody knocked at her door and she opened the door and he said, "Is your husband home?" And she said, "I don't have a husband, but if you have a problem that you'd like to talk to me about." And it was the guys from the power company wanting to cut all her trees because the lines were in the trees. Well, she goes out there and says, if you would straighten the poles, then those lines wouldn't be in my trees. And they didn't listen to her. And so they start cutting the branches anyway. Well, she decides to climb up in the tree with her family Bible, starts reading out of Genesis because they can't cut while she's sitting in the tree.
Yeah.
And eventually they go away. And then they start sending these executives with more and more expensive cars into her driveway saying, "Ma'am, we need to cut these trees." And she would take each one of them out to where the pole was and the trees were. And she would show them, "Do you think that pole is leaning or do you think it's straight?" And so what happened is that women narrate the problem differently. And we will tend to be the storytellers and the whistleblowers
Yeah.
and ask people to reconsider what's actually happening here. Ultimately, they said, those poles are crooked, and they righted them. So that's the difference between how a woman would define a problem and how a competitive narrative which has, is from corporations, mostly developed by men to be fun for men.
Yeah.
Competition is fun for more men than women. There's statistics that prove it. There are video games that are rigged to win way more often than normal, and men will just keep playing those games. Women peel off. They're like, this is boring. Let me go talk to somebody. So balancing the two is going to require, up to now, it's been either or. The matriarchy is the best, the patriarchy is the best, but we have to figure out how to blend both if we're going to solve these big problems. And Greta Thunberg is a symbol of not shutting up. She's a symbol of harm avoidance at a very high level. And so really, it's climate change that worries me the most. And I think unless we get our narratives straight, that we're headed for some bad times.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. I know we have. Greta Thunberg obviously is well known for the climate change, and she came to Scotland, the UK, over here for the COP. I forgot what it's called now. COP, whatever, the conference with all the politicians around the world to discuss the climate change. Currently.
And what was your impression?
My impression, there hasn't been much said about it since. Now you think about, obviously, coronavirus has really been kind of saturating everywhere. So it shouldn't really, because it's all kind of like, it should all slot in together. I mean, the travel industry went down because of coronavirus, and that probably increased the environment a bit, when everyone is in lockdown. I'm not saying that should happen completely, but,
Well, they're both problems that are a function of how well you embrace uncertainty. So if you have systems that are based on certainty, which is competitive systems, then you don't plan for uncertainty. So a bunch of liberals got together and had a pandemic plan in the United States. And then when you have conservatives who embrace certainty, they're not so big on the just in case plans or crisis preparation, that sort of thing. And so the systems, the collaborative narratives that embrace uncertainty, plan for uncertainty. It's built into the system. And so both with COVID and climate change, the root cause of this problem being unmanaged is the same thing. The same thing happened in the Texas power grid. What they did is they removed the redundant systems. And then they had a crisis event and they weren't prepared and people died, So this whole split between conservative and liberal is bad for everybody. We need to do a better job of using both approaches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that at that COP conference, there was a UK version of our environmentalist. He's gone back years when I was a little child, called David Attenborough. Mm. So, I mean, his narrative, obviously they're speaking on the same side,
Yeah.
But his narrative tends to be a little bit more, I suppose maybe I listen to him because he is male, I don't know. But obviously we're now looking at a female narrative in that same topic and a male narrative that's an advocate to what Greta's saying. So
that's moving in the right direction.
Sorry?
It's just that people aren't used to this perceptual agility. Humans crave certainty. We want to know that we're in control. We crave control. But the problem is, the more control that you take over a system, the less participation you get. So the less diverse narratives that are coming in, the less prepared you are for what you can't see coming around the corner.
I see. I was only going to just try and compare the male-female, side of what you're talking about, because obviously Greta's used as an example here. So what the question I was saying was really, what's the difference you see between male and female narratives about power? With the example I've given, David Attenborough and Greta, and which one's better? 'Cause
Exactly.
I'd be confused.
So the natural question for most males is which one's better.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
using those two examples, because obviously you've brought Greta into the book, but then I've seen both sides with David Attenborough and Greta, on the same topic.
What I'm trying to clarify is that it's not about which one's better. We need both.
Yeah. Okay.
And so her young voice that anticipates great harm down the line, perhaps to the exclusion of someone more experienced understands in how to get people to listen. You need both. So I would say Attenborough is much more experienced, is comfortable with the dialogue as it happens right now. And yet it's not enough. We have proof that what we've been doing up to now doesn't work.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So there needs to be a place for urgent voice warning of harm. This is kind of like Cassandra. The story of Cassandra is that the Trojan horse was filled with all the Greek soldiers, and they were pretending like they had surrendered. And so Cassandra in this myth calls out a warning, and she's don't accept this gift. We're all going to die. It's dangerous. So the idea that a win was so exciting that they would ignore voices of warning has been explained in mythology by male narratives as her being cursed by Apollo, that she could prophesize the future and that nobody would believe her. I question that. The way I look at this myth is that when you have a group of people who are so absorbed in battle narratives, so absorbed in the desire to win, a word of caution looks like a weakness. And so they ignore it.
Yeah.
And so what we're having to reconfigure or not, I'm not sure which way it's going to go yet, is these female narratives that urge us to avoid harm. In a competitive narrative, harm is just the cost of doing business. But with Greta, she's real clear that there's no business worth doing that level of harm. And I would say Attenborough has grown up. I'm 60, so we have been.
I'm 57.
Okay, great. So we've been having civil conversations about climate change for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'll even go so far as adversarial systems of trying to find truth, where it's which one is it, either or. That's what's caused us to not be prepared and to not take action. And so looking at the problem as both Attenborough and Thunberg, although we need more Thunberg right now. I love Attenborough, but he didn't panic. And we're in Cassandra times right now. Somebody needs to panic.
Right, I see. Okay.
Well, I'm overstating that. But.
She certainly has got a voice out there, and everyone's, kind of taking notice of it when it does a panic or alarm, I should say.
Well, she's speaking obviously to something that's already in the culture.
Yeah. She's raising more of an alarm than, and to get something done straight away about this than Attenborough is really. But Attenborough is outspoken, he's an activist as well, but in a different way. I see that point. Yeah. Okay, well, let's quickly go through. I mean, it's only 7 chapters in your book, by lots of things here. Let's just briefly go through the chapters and give an overview before people want to go out and buy it and hear what.
Well, the first chapter, I actually tell my story because this is subjective, and my reader needs to know who I am and where I'm coming from, right. and I do that for them. What my experiences have been. The second chapter is the summary of the stories that I gathered. Women tell stories that men don't tell about power. And so the stories are, focused on moral wins as often as quantifiable, profit wins. And then I talk about sexual dimorphism, this thing that happens in all species, as a way to get us to realize it's not either or, it's both and. We are a survival team. Female narratives by themselves, and there was a piece of research this morning showing, it was from Australia, that all female boards and all male boards do less well profitability-wise than diverse boards. So it's not one or the other. And the logistics of both and are going to require some differences in the way ranking systems work in corporations and the way that problems are defined. So I move on to the kind of narratives that men and women tend to use. I show the differences so that we can be prepared for them, we can embrace them. In chapter 6, I have the 10 territorial games. This is from a book I wrote in the late 90s. I asked people to tell me, there's a turf war, what happened? And they say, well, the guy stabbed me in the back. And I'd say, well, actually, there's no blood, no knife, thank goodness. What happened? And so they told me the specific ways that people discriminate. And it's gender, it's race, strategic noncompliance, which is, sure, we'll do that. We'll get right on that. And you're thinking, no, you're not. So I go over the 10 games that women will face when they try to challenge competitive narratives, and give alternatives other than flipping out or freezing, like I did in that first story, how to stay sane and keep talking. And then finally, I use the story of Cassandra to illustrate how battle narratives silence harm avoidance narratives. And right now, we need to figure out a way to balance the two.
Yeah, well. Well, it's certainly a book that I think it's worth me diving into, let alone the listeners. So I do also understand that you've got some trainings coming up as well together with this book. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, I have, I'm still doing storytelling. By the way, when I was in the 100 best business books of all time, 3 women and 97 men. And so when I teach storytelling, I do it with collaborative narratives. For instance, I don't teach anybody who doesn't have a partner. So I teach intact groups, working with Oculus, a lot of the brainiacs that perhaps don't have the subjective skills. I don't have anything coming up that's public access, although I am available to do keynotes for women's organizations if they want to explore this idea of these narratives. My website is AnnetteSimmons.com. The book website is differentwell.com. So if you're just interested in this new book, that's the place to go.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's fantastic. What you're up to these days? I mean, is it just mainly the book and that, or do you do other things as well?
The storytelling is my bread and butter. And about a year ago, I just stopped compromising, maybe 2 years ago, because a lot of people have an expectation of storytelling that's, it's how to control the narrative, how to flip somebody's head open and shove stuff in. I teach the who I am, why I'm here story. You have to understand how to tell that story first. A lot of the clients wanted, that we want to tell the company story. My whole point is if you can't tell your own story, then I can't help you tell the company story. We got to start with it being personal, because that's what we want with storytelling, is we want people to take it personally. And if we don't take it personally, they're not going to. So that's mainly what I'm doing, and promoting the book, having conversations about the book, just seeing where that's going to go. This last book was really, after 4 books that were trying to sneak in female narratives, storytelling, for instance, into business, I finally decided to come clean and write what I've seen over the last 30 years. boosted by research, so that if there are corporations who want to retain women, now they know how. Right now, the way these corporations are using their ranking systems and their problem definition systems, a lot of women just peel off because it's not fun. It creates moral distress. That's a term that comes from nursing, while the women are leaving nursing, because these systems are so lean, they're so competitive that they become heartless. Kindness gets cued as inefficiency. And so those people who want to redesign their logistical systems will need to pay attention to the difference between harm avoidance and risk avoidance. Risk avoidance is not something we want to cultivate. Harm avoidance, yeah, we need to do a better job at that. And the way we define problems, bringing in 5 or 6 different narratives and then creating a new one that's a result of those 5 or 6, like the 5 blind men. You remember that story?
Just the 3 blind mice, maybe.
Oh no, the 5
That's
blind
more
men.
of a song.
They each have hold of a different part of the elephant.
Right.
And so they're arguing, elephant is wide and flat and leathery. No, you idiot. I'm on the ground here. An elephant is round and stout like a column. And so that's what happens in corporate situations right now. You get these competitive ways of saying, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. There's a
bit like a
difference.
pantomime.
Exactly. There's a different skill in coming to problems, expecting there to be, at least 5 different points of view. Knowing when you walk in that your single point of view is inadequate, and defining the problem by power with rather than power over. So those differences seem to not only address our climate problems, but they also seem to address profitability. Right now, if you've created a work that's so meaningless or so competitive that nobody feels the opportunity to find some sort of moral good in what they do, then you're stripping them of one of the most important things that human beings need.
Excellent. Well, we'll round it up there. And just to remind our audience before you go what your website is for your storytelling trainings and everything else you do, and also where to find the book again.
Thank you. So AnnetteSimmons.com is all of my storytelling and the 4 books that I wrote. Annette at Annette Simmons is my email, and I'm quite happy to talk about what I do. DifferentWell.com is the website that has most of the information on the new book, Drinking from a Different Well, How Women's Stories Change What Power Means in Action. And you can get that on Amazon, or you can go to your individual bookstore if you're not a fan of Amazon. I've made it available both ways. Yeah. And it's also available in an audio book for those people who prefer that, and of course an ebook.
Excellent. Alison, it certainly has been very, very intellectually stimulating talking to you today. It's
I'm a little intense.
It's always and intense as well. It's always good to have these debates, and of course, it's very important topics as well. So I think it's great value for whether you're male, female, or any kind of background or characteristic.
I really wrote it for women. Yeah. Because if women don't believe in themselves, then men aren't going to listen to us.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised how many men have really enjoyed it. So maybe it is for both sexes.
Yeah, certainly. But there's some that the men can be feminists as well. I mean, we don't want to sidetrack, digress. But there are men that are advocates. Just the same.
Yeah, gender is a continuum. And just because it's not coercive anymore, you can choose which gender you want, doesn't make it not meaningful. Yeah. And there are clusters of behaviors and values that tend to be regarded as feminine and tend to be regarded as masculine. But the best of us can see things from both sides.
Absolutely. Well, Annette, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Like I said, it's been very intellectually stimulating, and I'm sure my audience has been as well. And I'd just like to say thanks a lot for coming on the show and explaining all this to us.
Thank you. It's been fun.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.